Nice one. So it's good to have you on, Marcus. Your last performance was absolutely amazing. Coming out of that, how do you feel? I mean, it was pretty dominant.
I felt good. Obviously, we always critique ourselves, so looking at the performance, I was happy with some of the things I was able to do, and then obviously there's things I want to work on to improve upon for the next one. But overall, I can't complain. I got the W, and the story continues.
Were you surprised by anything? Particularly with obviously you had a game plan going in, so did anything surprise you in that fight?
I wouldn't say anything surprised me. I mean, I know Jonathan. How do you not know who Jonathan is? He's been around forever. He's a stud. I knew that he could was going to be dangerous in so many different ways. We knew that left kick was going to be dangerous as well. The fight kind of played out like I expected it to. I expected not to take as many kicks as I did, but it is what it is.
Yeah, so obviously going into that, you were an underdog. Did that have anything? I don't know if you knew you were an underdog. I'm guessing you knew that, but did that play on your mindset at any point? Did they fire you up? Did you?
So I wasn't an underdog. I was a favorite. That's what tripped me out. If anything, that surprised me more than anything.
Oh, I'm going off Verdict MMA. You were an underdog on Verdict MMA. If you know Verdict MMA,
Oh
the global scorecards.
no, no, no. I just
Oh, you know
just
where?
off the. I always go off the betting numbers and off the
Oh,
betting
bet
numbers.
makers. Yeah. So Verdict MMA is a company that is run by the fight fans. So they do the scorecards themselves. They take the scorecards of everyone in the world that's put them through, and they do that. And on that, for some reason, you're underdog through the bets.
Oh, okay. Yeah, honestly, I thought I was going to be an underdog. So, I mean, I was surprised to see that. I didn't think I was. So that made sense. So, obviously, I should be, right? 9-1. I definitely haven't done as much work as Jonathan has. If you look at the resume, he's got double my fights and, he's finished some great guys and beat a lot of other great guys. So, I definitely felt like I was going to be the underdog going in there, but I had confidence that I had the skills to go in there and get the job done.
I mean, it would have been better if you were the underdog, right? It would have made people a lot more money. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was a great victory. So obviously, if we'll go back to the start, 'cause like I said in the messages, if we go back to the start and talk about your story first, because I mean, the fight was amazing, but I want to know where you came from. That's the main thing. So obviously, getting
Yeah,
into the
yeah.
sport.
I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. Moved here with my family to Arizona. Just been a knucklehead. Always liked martial arts, and I was always getting into street fights. It's just part of the culture, part of what it is. Street fighting, being a knucklehead. So yeah, I kind of come from humble beginnings, and then was a skateboarder for a long time. Started skateboarding. That was what I initially did. And then later on, around 22 years old, I decided like, man, I really want to try MMA. I was trying to get in the military at the time, and the military wasn't working out because I wasn't getting the things I needed to get taken care of. And uh, basically ended up going to a gym that was across the street from my job at the time, which was Circle K, and LA Boxing opened up across the street, and I basically started training there and started fighting probably about 3 months after being in there, and then the story kind of just unfolded from there.
I've got a really out there question, but you know your skateboarding hobby, right? So that includes a lot of weight transfer and like controlling your balance. A really weird one. Do you think that's ever affected the way you fight? I mean, you learn how to transfer your weight really well when you skateboard.
Yeah, I definitely think it has its attributes, and I think that everything has its attributes, right? Like each different sport, all of it does play into being able to be dynamic, essentially, and I think that it absolutely helps. What I say, like, it's like the biggest thing is that should that be your base? No, probably not the
Yeah.
best base. Uh, but yeah, I think it definitely does help. Helps me to. I think it helps with the moment too, because like we don't land a lot of tricks. Like we land a lot after a while, but when you're really trying to get that one trick and it's a new trick and you're just trying to bang it out, um, you fail more than you win. So it's like being okay with each failure and then jumping back on and giving your next best effort in that next moment. I think that if anything was probably one of the bigger things that translated.
I know I thought I'd ask that because obviously like dancing and things like that. A lot of sports do anything that involves your weight transfer usually works well when going into martial arts. So when you started martial arts, you said you started with boxing, right? Would you say LA boxing?
So LA boxing was like I guess my first. Yeah, they had MMA going on though. There's a little bit of jiu-jitsu. There's but we had kickboxing guys. But the first martial arts I ever actually did that had a sifu or a teacher was Wing
Mm.
Chun. So I did Wing Chun from like 18 to 20 years old with this crazy sifu. I did learn a lot of great Wing Chun, and I still love Wing Chun and believe Wing Chun can be effective as well. But that was my first thing, and then yes, LA boxing, which was mostly boxing, but there was some good kickboxing and Muay Thai coaches there. So it was all striking to start with.
Do you still try and utilize any of the Wing Chun? 'Cause that's a lot of parrying in Wing Chun and things like that. So defensive, offense. So do you still utilize that? Do you still remember any of the fundamentals from that and still use it?
Yeah, I would say I do. Yeah, I definitely think I do. And it's just in subtle things, could I say it transferred, how it transferred? No, but me and Kyler Phillips joke about it all the time. Sometimes we'll just do chisao, which is sticky hands. So we'll just play sticky hands and just let things flow, futsal, tonsao. So yeah, I know a bunch of the hand still, poxal, tonsao, futsal, bonzao, I still know my silam tao, so I definitely, it's something I would love to do later on in the future too. Just kind of bringing that back, I still believe in a lot of traditional martial arts. Is it the most effective for the ring where me and this person know each other, know each other's tactics, uh, and it's a elongated fight? Maybe not, but it's very effective in street altercations for sure.
I mean, martial arts, even traditional in general, they're usually the best for getting in the flow state, aren't they? And like sticky hands, I know quite a lot about that. It's really good for your flow state. So when you're in the octagon, you need to stay composed and stay calm. And if you're flowing with the fight, I guess that helps quite a lot. If we're expanding on the gym, so do you train with the same team now that you did, earlier on in your career, or
No, so I trained with the MMA lab. Basically, a lot of the guys from the MMA lab would come over to LA boxing. LA boxing would later on, a year later, be transformed into the UFC gym, right? So we had a UFC gym, and a lot of the guys that were at the MMA lab were teaching at the UFC gym. So Randy Stanky, I got introduced to him pretty early on. Keone Diggs was over there. Joe Riggs would come over. So Joe Riggs is one of the first people in my corner, Homer Moore was a classic guy that a lot of people don't know about. He would come over too. So yeah, we got to introduce. I got introduced to all these guys through that gym, and then I moved around a little bit. Went over to what we called the Dog Pound, which was our gym. Me and Aaron Faber and a couple of different other guys that were in the gym. Talon Glasser was over there with us as well, and from there we ended up that didn't work out very well. We only had 4 or 5 guys that were consistent, and like we realized if we were going to need to do this, we needed to take our step out. And I had already met a lot of the guys at the lab, and been invited over there before. So I went over and I talked to John Crouch, and I've been at the lab ever since. So been over there for almost 7 years now.
so was it at this place where you? Well, no, you must have got your nickname a bit earlier. Where did the nickname come from? Maniacs. I mean, you seem like a nice guy, so I don't get where Maniac would come from.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like I've always been a nice guy. If you ask people about me in the back in the day, it's not that I wasn't nice. It's that I just when the spark when you set the fuse, there was no cutting the line. You know what I'm saying? The bomb was gonna go off. So and I would just go off, and that's where I initially got the name from. I was tattooing my boys, and they always said that I was just the crazy one. I was the one that was gonna do whatever. Uh, and I've always been doing like backflips off of roofs and like off the back of my truck. I've always been like a ninja. So we were doing tattoos, and they were coming up with nicknames, and they brought up the Maniac. And for me, the Maniac was a book that I loved as a kid, So it's called Maniac McGhee, and that's why I loved it because they spell it differently, but it was the closest thing to my name during that time, so it was kind of cool that it was in a book. And then the story ended up playing out a lot like my life, because my wife's name's Amanda, and the girl that he meets in the book, his name is Amanda, and he's like a orphan child that's going all over the place, and I got kicked out of my house early on and been moving around aunts and friends and uncles and grandparents, early on in life. So when they had brought that up, I was like, man, the Maniac, and it was so funny because everyone after that moment, everyone always knew me as like a polite, nice person, So it's always been like, dude, where does this Maniac come from? And that's where it comes from.
No, it's nice to see some sentiment behind the names. A lot of people they pick the names and it's a bit there's no sentiment to it. A lot of people have really basic names. It's nice to hear some sentiment behind it. And another thing we spoke about was obviously Christianity. So that was a big part in your life. So I'd like to elaborate on that. I'm curious because I'm curious how that has affected your martial arts journey, your mental health journey, everything, your well-being.
So everything that you just said, right? My life, you know what I'm saying? It's given my life more purpose. And so when we grew up, we were a Jehovah's Witness for a little while, and Jehovah's Witnesses consider themselves as true Christians, you know. And honestly, we got into the book a lot early on in that time, and honestly, I always loved being a part of it. And through just things happening and people and different things, I fell away from the faith. You know, my mom fell away from the faith, and all that good stuff too. So when she fell away from faith and I was already falling away from faith and having problems and not liking this person and having issues with these people, it started making me have disbelief, you know, and falling away from God's will in my life, you know. So basically, I was kind of like, there's no God, essentially. You know, I became atheist. Um, or excuse me, I became atheist first, and then I would go on to be, agnostic. And then I was just like, oh, I know that there's God, but I don't really know him, you know. And then finally, my children got me back probably, I want to say 3 years ago. I was already back on the journey to try to find out who God was. You know, I finally picked my Bible back up and started figuring out what the purpose of my life was, because, you know, the purpose for me and like in my own right and what I want to do for my life just didn't have any real meaning, to be honest. You know, I'm out here chasing what I think is glory in the world, and it's just killing me, you know. It's killing my family, it's killing me, it's not doing anything good for us. And finally my kids were like starting to ask about God and getting into who, you know, who Jesus Christ was. And honestly, I didn't want to give them church hurt that I had, you know. So I was like, man, let's get back into the church. Let's actually start getting into these things, doing Bible studies and understanding who God is, who Jesus Christ is, that, you know, what the Holy Spirit is, you know, like, and understanding these things. And um through the determination to get closer to God and determination to understand who He is, it's really helped my relationship with my wife. You know, my relationship with my kids. It's turned me into a more impactful person as well. You know, I try to show up in each one of these moments and be grateful, opposed to you know, having ego or having malice in my heart for the things that I think I should deserve in life, opposed and be grateful instead, you know. So honestly, like that's kind of where that's been coming from. That's where like my whole push for finding Jesus Christ and making him a part of your life, and constantly praying and getting into church and just trying to find what your purpose is. Your purpose is whatever the will of God is, you know. So for me, that's kind of where that's been.
Do you find that helps you in, well, we'll start off in like martial arts and with that side of the mental health? Do you think that your faith has benefited you in that way? Because obviously it gives you some sort of push knowing there's someone there watching over you.
Yeah, 100%. And so, like, even I wish they would have showed the video from my last fight, but before the walkouts and everything, and just me even in the cage a little bit, because like you could see, like, it's just like my faith is not in my abilities. You know what I'm saying? My faith is not in what I can do, and that takes a whole lot off my chest. You know, my faith isn't even in winning. You know, like that's not what my faith is in. My faith is in things that are higher than the things of this world, right? So it kind of gives me a moment to be detached. Like, I don't want to lose. I plan to come in here and win these fights. I'm going to be there for the whole thing. I love doing what I do. But at the same time, it's like sometimes we put so much emphasis on the things of these worlds instead of the things that are past this world, the untangible things. I get necklaces. I've gotten some things that I always wanted, and it truly is like one of those things where it's like, oh, now it just sits there. That didn't change anything. You know what I'm saying? That didn't change anything in my heart. That didn't change anything in my life. Didn't change how I treat my family. Didn't change how I treat people around me. Honestly, even the UFC PI team, you know, all the UFC guys, like how I treat them, how I interact with them, you know, like God has given me a position in life to be able to interact with so many people. And that interaction, I want to, you know, make him proud and in those interactions, and, you know, and exalt his name. And I definitely think it's helped me out in the mixed martial arts fashion in that way. Like, I put faith in him. So I don't really have to overly try to search for these things of the world, because my faith isn't in those things. My faith is in him. And if I do right by him, all these things will be added to me, you know?
Well, I'm glad to see you've came back to that. It sounds like it's really beneficial. I mean, I know a lot of fighters usually. I mean, there's some people that they start fighting and they find their spirituality from fighting. I think for some reason combat sport seems to lead people to spirituality in some way. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure if you've experienced that yourself. Maybe it's martial arts in general. They all have a sense of spirituality to them, especially Wing Chun. Let's be real, and combat sports like that. But
100.
no, you carry on. Yeah.
I was gonna say 100%. I think, well, it's just discipline and going through tough times and trials and being upset with yourself. And I mean, honestly, like that's why people that are have deal with depression. love it because it gives them a moment to escape into something else that's not necessarily their depression. And it also helps with that. It helps us know that, oh man, this guy was smashing me for 30 minutes straight. And here I am still after this and I'm still good. It's like, okay, the next time I feel depressed and I'm really going through it for 40 minutes and I'm like in my head and outside of my head, gives me the ability to be able to fight those emotions and be calm and tell myself different things similar to as I was getting smashed by this guy who didn't want to let me breathe. So I think it definitely plays its part that way. And I honestly, I can see it in my gym. I see so many of the guys just, I mean, we're going to start doing more Bible studies. So many of the guys that are like, really figuring out who God is and leaning into that.
I think it's probably there's no better way to ground yourself than something like martial arts, and I guess spirituality coincides very well. Obviously, moving forward after this fight, you've proved your skills once again. What are you looking for moving forward? Is there someone in mind, or are you taking whatever the UFC has? What's your plan? I'm sure you've got a plan.
Similar to both of those, yeah. Like, I think that Eamon makes the most sense. Me and him were scheduled to fight in September of last year, or September of this year. He's number 13, I'm number 14. I think that fight makes sense. For us to kind of like solidify who gets shot in the top 10. You know what I'm saying? Because but I'm not against anything. We'll see what the UFC wants to do. Like, I'm not necessarily like, oh no, I would preferably not fight 5 rounds yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's preferably. I'm not trying to do a main event for my fifth fight in. I mean, I will, but money talks. And it just matters. Like, how big is this fight going to be? Like things have to be right. But in for my plan, I don't think that that's what I plan to do just yet. Uh, but yeah, the plan is, maybe fight him. I'd love the Aldo fight as well. He's up there too. He's not in the top 10 yet, so I think that'd be good too as a stepping stone at getting into the top 10. So I feel like those are probably the next two possible matchups because it's going to be who goes top 10. I prefer to fight somebody above me, or that's above me. So hopefully that's how that all works out.
What do you see yourself doing in those fights? Do you see ways you could take advantage over their skill sets?
I do, and I think that all of us have our things, and I truly believe that, and I completely respect their skill sets and their abilities and all those things for sure. These guys are all savages. They're not at the top of the bantamweight division like this for no reason. A lot of these guys have been around forever too. Me and Eamon are kind of new, but even Montel Jackson, who's above me right now, he's been around for a while. He's just been out for a little bit. These guys have been around for a long time, doing a lot of great work, and I don't discount it. So, but to say that no one they're unbeatable, they're beatable. They've been beat. I've been beat once. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we all can get beat, and it's who can make those adjustments and who can show up fight night and impose their will.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking a lot about fighting, but I found you. Oh, you told me about YouTube, and I watched it today. I wasn't expecting it to be how it is. It's so comedic. It's so funny. I guess now I've spoken to you, I understand. But I was thinking, the maniac, and then I pulled up the YouTube and I watched the one where you're in the pool and then someone knocks on the door. Talk a bit about that because I can't tell if it's a comedy show or a cooking show or what. It's great.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it, man. And it's kind of like both. Before I even got into the UFC, I was trying to like start branding myself more so that me and my team were trying to brand myself more so that when the UFC did call, we actually were doing some things too. And again, I'm the type of guy that doesn't necessarily like to step outside of who he is too much. Like I don't want to chase things that aren't for me. You know what I'm saying? But I do want to be able to give back to my fans and show them who I am. They all want to come in too, and I've always been a fan of cooking, right? So I wouldn't say I'm a chef by any means, but my wife's always talked joked about how I cook way more than she does, and I've always cooked. My grandma started me cooking early on in life, and my buddies kind of brought it up, and I was like, man, I don't know if I could do this, but let's do it. And so we got started, and honestly, they wanted it to be more of a serious type of thing. But right off the rip, the first episode, we were like, bro, like I'm not a serious type of individual. Like I like to crack jokes, I like to have fun. I don't really like to be scripted either. I'm not the biggest fan of being scripted, especially in things that I'm creating. So yeah, we were like, man, Dave Chappelle used to do all these skits, man. They used to do all these skits, and I used to love how he'd open things up with skits, and I'm a big fan of that. So we were like, all right, man, we're gonna do a comedy skit. We're gonna do something, even if it's not comedy, because I did a Matrix one too that was more serious, but it was kind of funny too. But yeah, do great skits, get some skits going on, either some corny ones or some like super funny, something that's just interesting to draw in the viewer, and then be like, oh yeah, by the way, it's a cooking show.
No, it surprised me because you told me it was a cooking show, and that was the first one I clicked on. You're in the pool smoking, and then someone's at the door. It was really funny. But no, yeah. I mean, was it supposed when you were first thinking about it? Were you planning for it to be a serious cooking show? Because you said you didn't want to go too far from yourself. So were you gonna show recipes originally? Was that the original plan, or was it supposed to be a comedy show all along?
No, it was supposed to just be like a cooking show and see where it goes, you know. I don't think when we came up with the plan, we all thought it was going to be a comedy, you know. It just happened to end up being that way, and we kind of leaned into it, you know. Right off of the first episode, like I'm throwing buns at dude, like you know, I was already doing these type of things, you know, and we were catching it on camera, and we were like, bro, this is what we're doing, you know, and it just kind of progressed to be that way. And now that's the only thing I want it to be, you know. I don't want it to be. Now, don't get me wrong. I do want to start getting into. I guess so. I want to get educated. You know, I want to get educated in food, educated in chef stuff. I want to be able to bring some value to my viewers. You know, so like the plan is definitely to start adding in people who actually do this, real chefs, you know, real cuisine chefs and things, and then also start going and learning different skills that I could, you know, obviously joke about, but bring into the show and be like, yeah, I learned this skill yesterday, boom, 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 you know, like I was doing the single hand egg crack, you know, in one of the episodes, you know, just bringing like little things like that to the viewer's eyes, like learning different cutting techniques. So I think that's the plan. I really want to get into it here soon. I just got to get my videographer and make a real plan.
That was gonna be the next question actually. I was gonna say that they're edited really well. The videos are really high quality videos. I was gonna say how much effort is put into these because they look professional. They're really professional.
Yeah, he's a professional, man. He really does it. He does great. He's a fantastic, and honestly, he's a professional in real estate as well. So that's actually what he does. He's a lawyer. He's a great. I mean, he's got so many different avenues that he already has. So it just so happens that we are both, you know, focused on me fighting and doing the cooking show, and him doing videography at the time. And now things are kind of a little bit more all over the place. So I really don't want to start without him. You know, I think us together is the key. You know, but I got to work with his schedule and make sure it's worth his time because I know it does take effort and time for him to do so. And then I honestly I just need to get with him figured out because he's great. He's the only person I want to do it with.
So the last thing I wanted to ask you, but this is a great question because you're probably the perfect person to ask it, is obviously coming from your upbringing and your martial arts journey. There's a lot of people, I think now the UFC is blown up the way it has. Obviously, it's a lot bigger now than it used to be, and martial arts in general. Um, I think people find it quite intimidating to get into that sport. So going to the gym, starting when you have no experience, it's quite intimidating. What would you say to someone who is one of these fight fans, probably watching this interview, and they want to join this journey, but they're intimidated by it because it is a very intimidating journey to start.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say find a gym that find a good gym. You know, that's the biggest thing. Find a good gym. I think that's the big with good instructors who are not going to throw you into the fire. You know, don't plan to fight. Don't come in and plan to fight. Just come in and plan to learn. You know, plan to be an open book per se. You know, I think that that's the biggest thing. And then to just get started because everything is intimidating. You know, if you look at anything, getting into technology stuff is intimidating. My brother just got into just finished HVAC school. He was super intimidated to start it, and now he's done with it. You know, and you know, so it's crazy. It's like just get started. I think that's the biggest thing, and don't go get started and try to get punched in the face right away. You're not gonna like it. It's not gonna feel good. You know, and you're going to get punched in the face because that's when you start. That's just how it is. Especially if we're talking about striking. So you know, find a good gym that's going to give you good techniques and give you good conditioning, and you're going to learn different techniques on the bag, and you're going to build a skill set, you know, before you actually start trying to put that skill set to the test. And as far as jujitsu goes, I think, you know, there's so many good jujitsu schools now that really, if you get online and you look around your area and you just read into those schools, you'll get you'll find a good gym for yourself because there's so many that are great gyms. And a lot of jujitsu and in particular is not going to be really heavy kill unless you're going to those classes. The average jujitsu gym is going to say, hey, we have our beginner classes over here. We have our intermediate classes over here. We have our competition classes over here. you probably shouldn't start competition class. Go start with beginner class. And as you start to feel good, get into intermediate, and then test yourself in the competition classes when you're ready to do so.
I think a lot of people, it might be a pride thing, maybe. When you first start, you don't want to be in the beginner class. I know this for myself. I remember when I first started, I didn't want to be in the beginner class because you feel lower, right? And you want, but then the thing is, there's levels to this, so you have to humble yourself when it comes to this sort of sport.
And that you said it exactly, right? You feel lower. Well, what's wrong with feeling lower? What's wrong with acknowledging that you're at the lowest part of the totem pole? I think that's one of the beautiful things about mixed martial arts, because you're either going to humble yourself and start beginner class, or you're going to get humbled when you get into it.
Yeah.
That's right. Like it's like, and then that's where you'll see people get upset. Oh, they're going too hard. Why are you in this class? Why is this the class that you started with? Of course they're going to go too hard because that's this class. Like go over to the other class so that you can prepare for the guys that are going to go crazy over here, because this class is all these guys that have been working for the last year sharpening their sword, and they want to use their sword a little bit. And you're just trying to go in there and feel good. I really don't think people should use mixed martial arts as a way to make themselves feel tough, because the first year you're not going to feel tough. You're going to feel like the lowest guy on the totem. And that's for the average 95% of people, whether you're an athlete or not. I think people don't respect martial arts. It's funny because my coach always says, um, everybody, nobody thinks that they can go be a professional NFL player. Nobody thinks that. Nobody thinks that they can get on the court. Most people don't think they can get on the court with a professional NBA player and beat them in basketball. But 80% of people think that if you put them in front of a professional fighter, that they had a chance to beat him.
Because
It's
they
like,
see red, right? They see red. That's what people say, isn't it? It's like I see red. You don't understand. Or what's his name? That bodybuilder. I see. I'm 260. Like the bodybuilders.
I'm 260, bro. I'm 260. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Brad,
yeah.
Brad, whatever is his name, Brad or something
Martin.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bradley Martin. That's what it is. Yep. And so I think people kind of get that mentality. And then and a lot of people don't want to go to the gym and find out pretty quickly that, hey, that's not true. If you want to go with good guys, you're going to get strangled. You're going to get your arm hurt. You're going to get your leg, your ankle hurt. Like you're going to get hurt a little bit, unless these guys are nice to you. But if you have an ego and a chip on your shoulder, why should this guy be nice to you? Why should they submit to your ego and let you falsely walk around with a big puffed up chest when you haven't put in any work for it? So I would say don't go in the gym trying to fluff your ego up. Just go in there, start your beginner class, get in there, start knowing people, be humble, learn, and then you'll kick ass at some point.
I think people. This is another thing people need to consider is I don't think people realize that even the pros like yourself. I'm sure you do the fundamentals, the beginner classes, not maybe not the beginner classes, but the fundamental classes anyway, because they are essential no matter what stage you are at. We could be talking John Bones Jones, still does the fundamentals, still does the jabs and straights. Not necessarily the beginner classes, but the same things as the beginner classes. Everyone goes back to that because you have to. It's not like you're worse. That's just it's necessary, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If anybody comes to the elite team, we spend the grimy part about the elite team is we do the same thing. We just do it over and over at the highest pace for 45 minutes. Like we do the same thing over and over for 45 minutes. You don't want to do that. You want to move on to the next flashy thing. No, we're going to grind this one thing and we stick to the basics. We sharpen our basics. All of our basics have to be sharp. So at any given time when those basics are necessary, they can be utilized. And so again, it can become very boring in that aspect as well. But we have adapted to the fact that, hey, this is what it is. We're going to work on our basics eh, constantly so that and that's how art works. I was telling this one guy, I was like, hey, man, it's like being an artist, right? Uh, if someone gives you paintbrushes and you only know how to use one paintbrush, you're never going to know which paintbrush to pull out for what technique you need to use. But if they give you all the paintbrushes and give you every reason why you should use each paintbrush, now you know when you need a fine line. Now you know when you need a fluttered line. Now you can create your own art, you know? So that's what it's you're getting your basics so that you can start painting your own picture.
Do you have an interest in painting? You knew the strokes then. You said about the lines.
So I did a little painting too. I was a tattoo artist. So and
Oh
that's
man,
something I really would like to do at some point too. So I would like to do some tattoos and get back into art. So I did a little bit of painting and pastel, and I did a whole lot of drawing, and I've done probably like 200 tattoos when I was tattooing. So,
You've done everything. You do all sorts of things. It's crazy. There is one last thing that just pops in my head that I'd like to ask you is something you said earlier about everyone loses, right? And you have to it's who makes the adjustments. So obviously you make adjustments after your wins as well. So your last fight, what are your adjustments after that? I mean, you won, but obviously you always learn.
More so than anything, I think I've learned that I just need to be more myself, be free in there, I can utilize all my tool set and I don't have to limit myself, so I'll be focused on, becoming more creative in there, and also just knowing that all my skill sets can work at even at the highest level.
I might have one more actually. Is there anything we haven't seen of you yet? Anything you know you have, but you haven't shown us?
Uh, I mean, really, I haven't shown a whole lot of my wrestling and grappling. Uh, I've done a little bit of that against Jerry Newson, but there hasn't been a whole lot of that too. So I'm sure, in the future I'll be showing a lot more of that, seeing as though a lot of the guys in the top of the division, are great grapplers.
Perfect. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on. And it's been a pleasure.